You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matthieu Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson, tackling the topics that life throws in your way. Brought to you by Severia Mobility Products, providing you better mobility for life. Call them at 1-800-931-5655.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family challenges. It could be about yourself, your elderly parents, or even your kids. We try to tackle it all and show you what life can throw your way. My name is Matthieu Vecchio. I'm a certified professional consultant on aging, and I'm here with Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi, Matt. It's so sad what's going on out there today with the rains. I feel so bad for everybody.
It really is, and we will stay tuned to CJD all day long, because you'll be getting more updates, and a typical show on Life Unrehearsed is going to be a little bit more news oriented. Stephanie, some of us have asked about finding out a little bit more about us, and our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page is becoming a real resource. Guests that we've had in previous weeks, it's all there, it's all posted, so some people are commenting, where can we find you? So certainly Life Unrehearsed Facebook page, tons of information. We're building up a nice library of information from previous guests.
That's right, and everybody's website, all the guests that have been on, we have all their contact information there as well, too.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so certainly with all the floods, we're thinking of you. Stay strong, and wishing you all the best and lots of courage. Stephanie, as you know, this first segment, we've got a very interesting first segment, and as you know, in my business life, we help families, particularly moms and dads, search and find retirement homes and take them through that whole transition process. And when we ask why there's transitioning going on, a lot of the times it's because there may be mobility issues, maybe staying in the house is becoming too difficult, stairs to navigate, and so on. And it's amazing, in discussions with either the adult children or mom or dad, there are lots of falls that are happening, slips and falls. In fact, the Canadian stats, 20 to 30% of people 65 and over will fall at least once every year. And if you indeed inquire even further, some people might think, well, maybe because they tripped on a stair or something was in the way. Yes, that's true. But a lot of it is based on because they lost their balance. Yeah,
and I know that for myself with my mom, she's fallen several times. I mean, she says it has to do with the nerves in her foot, that on one of her feet, she actually doesn't really feel. She doesn't have diabetes or anything. It's not because of that, but she can't feel her foot all of the time. And so it creates a lot of problems. And she's had several falls, one which led to cracked ribs. And certainly, as we know in our businesses, once somebody falls who's a senior, often it leads to then they do have to relocate. They're not able to go home. So I'm really excited to hear more about how we can improve our balance. I'm someone who trips all the time. I haven't necessarily fallen yet, but I do trip a lot. Maybe our guests will be able to help us out. In studio today, we have with us Matthieu Boule, who is a friend and colleague of mine for many years. He's an osteopath and also a posturologist, and he's going to talk to us today about balance and posture and seniors. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Good afternoon, guys.
Welcome, Matt. Thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
So really glad again that you're here. I want to get right into first. I want you to explain what is posturology. I think probably a lot of people have heard of osteopath, but a posturologist is not something that's as well known. So what do you do as a posturologist?
So I think people have heard of osteopathy a bit more, so I'll start there. Osteopathy was born in 1874, so it's been around for a while, and that's most commonly used form of physical therapy for a lot of people. Posturology is more a neurological technique. It's been born in 1985, and basically...
it's recent.
Yeah, it's more recent, and I think that might be why it's maybe not as known. It's a bit more abstract as well. So basically, posturology is an assessment process where basically we look at how stable is someone on their 2 feet and if they're imbalanced in their joints. So for example, maybe they have a shoulder that's a bit lower, maybe their neck doesn't turn to the left as well as it does to the right. So all of these small imbalances, there might be no pain, there might be no problem that the person reports of, but we figure, you know what, there might be something we can improve on that person, and if we do, often enough, not only do they get more aligned, which helps with their movements, but we also increase their stability, which helps with the issues that you've mentioned.
Okay, so there's a lot of benefits, but the first thing that I want to go back to, because that's a lot of information that you gave us, so I want to understand. It sounded to me what I took from that, well, I took a lot of things, but the most basic thing I took from that, it's about your feet first and balancing on your feet. Is that right? Is that kind of how you start your evaluation?
Yeah, there's two body parts that the brain actually uses to keep you upright. So the feet do so with the ground. So it's a bit like the foundations of a house, right? So if your foundations aren't good, anything above, like the first floor or the second floor, you won't really get anything really stable there. So the feet are the foundation, and then how your eyes track when you look in front of yourself is the second part that the brain uses. So between your feet and your eyes, you essentially have all your joints, and you have your whole stability that you need to create.
You know, I think as we're listening to you, it's a bit foreign to many of us, and there could be tremendous benefits, not just for seniors, but I think for everyone in general, particularly, though, for seniors. But how do we sort of take this unknown entity, this science, this is actually an amazing science of posturology, how do we make it easier for people to understand and to accept it as, you know what, this is actually going to help, because it's very natural, isn't it?
It's very natural, and quite frankly, I think people need to be assessed to really get the full gist of it. But in concept, really, when you think about it, you get out of your bed in the morning. What's the first thing you do is you put your feet on the floor, and you want to stabilize yourself so that you can get up. And what you did right after is you looked straight ahead to know where you were going. So that should make it a bit clearer in terms of essentially before we do absolutely anything, we always want to make our feet stable on the ground, and we want to look where we're going, and then essentially we can start living. So it's at the very core of absolutely everything.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Stephanie Erickson here with Matt Del Vecchio, and in studio we have with us Matt Boule. He's talking about posturology, and he's talking about the importance of your feet and your eyes and how they work together. Now, Matt, you said the first thing when you get out of bed is you put your feet on the ground. Not true. The first thing I do is go, oh my God, I want to sleep more. So my first
Most people.
Yeah, those are thought processes first. But you're talking about, the importance of starting there, right? And using your eyes and your feet and getting them to work together, I guess, cooperatively to keep yourself upright and in balance to prevent falls. How can we do this in a very natural way? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, so now I have to be planning how I'm planting my feet at all moments. How do you do that naturally without having to think about it?
I think what people can do to figure out how much of posturology they would need is maybe just test themselves. So, for example, if you stand upright and you look straight ahead and you pick one foot off the floor, if this is hard for you, if you feel unstable, if you feel uneasy, essentially you would need a qualified posturologist to intervene so that not only could we assess your capacity of, for example, standing on one foot, which should be fairly easy, and at just about any age. And so if that's not the case, then not only does assessment need to be performed, but optimization of that balance system could also be performed. And that's where a posturologist actually comes in.
You know, we're going to open up the lines because it is a very interesting topic, and we'd like to know if poor balance has caused any problems for you or a loved one. And if you have any questions for Matt, please call in at 514-790-0800 or text us at 514-800. I think, Matt, there's almost pride and dignity involved with if there was a fall, and what the reality is, this is probably a normal process. It's not the end of the world if there is a fall, but do you see that maybe people are embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it when in fact the opposite should happen? You should try to get it open and discuss it.
Yeah, for some people, it's the end of the world, because if you consider that falls for the elderly are a risk factor for fractures, especially at the level of the hip. We talk about osteoporosis and we say we need to help in terms of having strong bones because we want to make, bones really strong in case of a fall. And I'm all good for that, but I'm thinking, can we just make sure people don't fall? And essentially they'll fall because they start to lose balance. And it's true that with age, it's normal that you lose sensitivity in the receptors of your feet. So that's a normal occurrence. Now, are there ways to improve how sensitive your feet are? And yes, there are. We use a technology in posturology, and it stimulates the feet from basically morning to night. Essentially, it makes you more stable.
So I want to find out. A bit more about. We're talking more about seniors and how things may impact them. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. But right now we have a special report about the flooding, and we're going to head over to Richard Deschamps.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson. Brought to you by Severia Mobility Products, providing you better mobility for life. Call them at 1-800-931-5655.
Wouldn't it be great if we could all walk like that? Like with the beat in our head, walking this way. That's such a great song. I love that song. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. I'm Stephanie Erickson, and I'm here in studio with my co-host, Matt Del Vecchio. And we also have as a guest, Matthieu Boule, who is a posturologist. We're getting lots of texts coming in, and we're going to get to those in just a minute. And if you want to add to the conversation, you can certainly text us and let us know if poor balance has caused any problems for you or a loved one. Text us at 514-800 or give us a call 514-790-0800. Okay, so Matt, before we went off for that special news report, and I'm really sorry about all the flooding that's happening. I hope everybody is okay. Right before we heard about that, we were talking about aging and some of the things that come with age that could cause some issues with balance and posture. So, I'm thinking of some of the more usual diagnoses: osteoporosis, arthritis. We've got inflammation that comes with aging sometimes, not always, medication. So as we get older and we have some of these diagnoses, will it impact naturally our posture, or can some of these things, are they not connected, in other words?
Everything is connected to some extent, but I guess what's important to say there is that everything you've mentioned are medical conditions, and posturology is not a technique that is trying to replace the interventions by a medical doctor, for example. So I believe people listening to the show right now, if they suffer from any of these ailments, the first thing they need to do is consult with a medical doctor. And then the second thing is, if you improve these people's alignment, for example, if you can line up their shoulders and their pelvis and their hip bones, and if you can create more balance for them, essentially they just might have less symptoms. And that's what we've seen clinically. So outside of having a diagnostics for, again, arthritis or other conditions, if people's bodies are more aligned and if they're more stable, if they can walk that way, just like Aerosmith says, it's essentially what I've seen over 10 years of practice is that these people have a better quality of life, and that I think is really important for a lot of people.
Okay, so it's not going to cure arthritis, but certainly if you have arthritis, it can be a beneficial, non-invasive treatment that can help alleviate some of those symptoms.
Yeah, that's what I've seen with a bunch of people, including my dad. My dad was my first client, and my dad was...
Did he pay you?
You know what? My dad paid in many ways.
He did when you were younger, right?
He's still paying now. But you know what? Diagnosed with arthritis and arthrosis in both knees, and he was going through the realm of what was offered medically speaking, and the symptoms were under control, but his function wasn't really improving. Like he couldn't go for long walks, he couldn't do gardening. My mom loves flowers, so obviously that was really a bummer for him. And essentially, with a pelvis that's aligned, with feet that were more stable, he really hasn't had symptoms since, and that was over 10 years ago.
You hear you, and I'm sure that's amazing. It's like, it can't be true, but right. This is what you do every day. And that segues into one of our texts. I think it's a very common question that we get concerning office workers. Right. So can posturologists help with poor posture due to computers and sitting?
Yeah. The issue is that people think they have poor posture because they sit. Quick story, people that stand too much say that they have issues because they stand all day long, for example, like hairdressers. And then other thing is people that sit all day figure, well, it's because I'm sitting all day that I have all these posture issues. So one of these people has to be wrong because they're in two completely opposite different positions. Right. So that's position versus posture. Essentially, the alignment that you have in your joints, you've had since you were quite young. You've only learned how to stand upright and walk once, and that took place between 0 to 2 years old. So if you're really trying to address the root cause of why you have these postural imbalances, it ain't because you've had an office job for the last 10 years. That didn't help, and it added on a layer of stress on your body. There's no doubt about that. But the root cause isn't the fact that you're sitting too much or you're standing too much.
Okay, but certainly the interventions that you do can help with that, because if you go and see you and you're working on your feet and your eyes and your posture, it can roll over into the way it's going to work when you're sitting.
Essentially, it increases the threshold for the body to do absolutely anything. So that could be sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. It could be wanting to go to the gym after you've done that for 8 hours a day, where you would think, well, I can't go to the gym. My back's already hurting from sitting. So it's about raising the threshold of the body.
Yeah.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matt Del Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson. That's Matt Boule talking about posturology. Matt, a common question, in fact, a text just came in as we're speaking here concerning what type of exercises can be done at home without actually having to see a posturologist. Is there stuff we could do at home?
Absolutely. I think the most fundamental ones to do, and those are the ones I suggest to my clients, are the ones that work on balance. And we've spoken about balance today and its importance in terms of essentially just keeping you alive. Balance is the one skill you have to keep you on your feet and to keep you safe. So common exercise I give is I have people stand up. They place both their feet together, which already just doing that for some people is a challenge. I have them cross their hands over their shoulders and keep their eyes open for 30 seconds. Now imagine this, some people have a hard time even doing that. If they're really good at that, you know what, we can start having them close their eyes. And that increases the need for, muscle recruitment, and you need to balance yourself even more efficiently.
Smart.
So it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need expensive equipment. Quite frankly, the exercise I suggest to my clientele, at the most, I need a yoga mat and a tennis ball.
Wow. So these are really simple things that you can do at home. And I know, Matt, that you do these Facebook Lives all the time where you're giving exercises, and we'll get to those coordinates at the end because I think people can tune into that and get some ideas. We have great texts coming in. Someone asked a question. There's somebody with severe scoliosis, and they're asking for the best bed choice, support aids, and the best shoe choice. You said to us at the break that the only one that you could really advise on are the shoes.
Yeah.
But so you recommend special shoes for people?
I mean, essentially the foot has 26 bones. Most people don't think of that when they look at a foot, because most shoes on the market give a lot of support. And if the foot needed a whole lot of support, I don't think it would be so complex. I don't think it would have so many bones where it's made to move. So if the foot is made to move, I think the shoe should allow for that to take place. So the shoes I recommend, we actually have them at my clinic. It's a shoe with very, very thin sole, 3 millimeters. It's got no drop and no arch support.
That's amazing information, Matt. In fact, even a couple of texts have come in, and we're going to be going out a little earlier than normal because we're going to get a news update. So, Matt, where can people contact you?
So, Clinic V is where I work as a posturologist, and the phone number is 450-688-2555.
Okay, and we'll put that up on the Facebook, our Facebook page for Life Unrehearsed.
Exactly. So, Matt, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys.
Very informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man, Steph.
You're welcome.
Now, coming up after the news, we're going to have a conversation with Ed Cukier, who is the head of psychological services at Summit School, and he's going to be talking to us about a very important topic that affects, I think, a lot of families and children. We'll be talking about bullying.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt Del Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson. Brought to you by Severia Mobility Products, providing you better mobility for life. Call them at 1-800-931-5655.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800, a show where we talk about the challenges of life, maybe taking care of a aging relative, taking care of young kids, and everything in between. I'm Stephanie Erickson, social worker and family caregiving expert, here with Matt Del Vecchio, certified professional consultant on aging. We were just hearing a song, Mean Girls by Rachel Crow. Matt, I have to tell you a story that just broke my heart. Last week, my daughter came home from school, and they're doing this thing called like classe verte or something, where they go away for a night for the sixth graders for like a little graduation. And they spend the night there, and they each have, a cabin, and there's so many girls that sleep together, and I think there's seven or eight or something like that. And when she came out onto the playground at one of the recesses, she comes out and there's a group of girls chatting, and she walks up and asks them what they're chatting about, and they say, nothing, nothing. But later she finds out that they were taking a vote to see whether or not she would be included in that cabin or not. And it just broke my heart. I mean, I get choked up even thinking about it now. Of course, her heart was broken, and I don't know. I didn't know what to do because part of me was so angry. I wanted to, talk to every single kid, every single parent. And the other part of me just wanted to, scoop my daughter up and tell her, I'll go for it with her,
You're hearing more and more stories about bullying, and here it is, personal right there.
Yeah.
And I think all of us in one way or another have some form of story or know someone with bullying. And in fact, it's such a hot topic. We're going to open up the lines right away on this. So has your child experienced any bullying with your school or anywhere? And what have you done about it? So please call in at 514-790-0800 or text us at 514-800. And to help navigate through this very sensitive topic that seems to be getting more and more popular, very proud to have Ed Cukier with us. And Ed is the department head at psychological services at Summit School. And you have a whole wealth of experience in many school boards. Ed, we're very, very pleased to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt.
I guess one of the questions is, in my generation, with the kids growing up, I'm sure there was bullying going on, but with all the media attention going on, be it social media or regular media, is it fair to say, can we define what bullying is today? What would that be?
Yeah, you're right. Bullying has always been around, okay? But now with social media, it's even more so, okay? There are three factors that should be considered when we're saying a child is being bullied or it's a bullying situation. One is that there's repetitive behavior that's harmful to the child. Another one is there's an imbalance of power. It might be age. It might be the size. It might be the fact that one child has a disability, a visible or invisible disability that's come out in relationships. And the last factor is that the victim feels stressed and trapped and isolated. And as Stephanie mentioned, excluded. Mm-hmm. Exclusion is an indirect form of bullying. But, all these factors have short-term and long-term effects on the mental health and physical health of children.
That's true, because I know, I, as a child myself, I felt excluded often, and I can still think back to those moments, and I'm surrounded by wonderful friends now, and I don't, feel excluded at all, but those wounds are still kind of with me. But now, like, when I talk to my peers about bullying, and all of us are on board and don't want it to be happening and want to protect our kids and such, but I also hear people make comments like, we were just like that. It's the way it is. That's just how kids are. And I'm wondering, is that a piece of it? Should some of it be kind of like chalked off to that's just how kids are? Or should we become very serious right away with all of it?
Yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way things have always been. But like you said, you still feel the wounds. You still have the wounds. And there are triggers. And the thing with social media today, it's ubiquitous. You have it everywhere. And it follows you from school to home. It used to be in school or in the playground. You might experience it. When you come home, you close the door, it's over. But now it's 24/7, it's everywhere. And this constant stress that bullying creates has a lot of impact on the child's psychological well-being.
And I think that's an important point. As parents, we perhaps see our children, we know them every day. There may be changes going on, and we don't know what's going on. Are my kids on drugs, or what's going on? When in fact there may be a bullying issue. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you could recommend as parents in terms of warning signs? What should we be looking out for?
Well, there are many warning signs, and you're right. You don't know if it's drugs, if it's related to a relationship breakup, whatever it is. But the first step for all parents is to talk to their children and to keep talking with their children. And if you notice certain things like bruising or scratching, then it's pretty obvious there's some kind of physical aggression towards your child. But you should also look if there are changes in the behavior of your child. Is your child becoming more depressed, withdrawn, anxious, isolated, not sleeping, and so forth? You have to talk to your child. And
I think right there, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think that's part of what's so hard. And I want to get to that. I just want to say, first off, that you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt Del Vecchio, and we have in studio with us Ed Cukier, who is the head of psychological services at Summit School. That's his current position. We're talking about bullying. You're talking about, some of the warning signs, and parents should talk to their kids. So now in my daughter's situation, I spoke with her. We talked about it. I right away, here comes the mommy bear out of the den, wanting to, run to the school, do everything that I can possibly do. And what my daughter said to me is, please don't say anything. That was her first response. And I think that's probably a challenge for a lot of parents in a lot of situations if we're not sure how much we should do or not do.
Yeah. You're the parent, You don't want to retaliate, that's for sure. That makes things worse. You're also the role model for a child. But I think you should talk to the guidance counselor of the school or the principal of the school. You can talk to the teacher as well. You should have as much to do with the school as possible, with your daughter's, the parents of your daughter's friends. Talk to them, see how things are going. Get as much information as possible. Ask your daughter, perhaps in a roundabout way, is bullying going on in the school? What it's like? Who's being bullied? How do you feel about it? And gradually, perhaps, she'll talk to you about it.
And I think one of the things you mentioned also, you're talking about the school. Now, there's lots of different people at the school. We've got, the school psychologist, the teacher, the guidance counselor, the principal, vice principal, everybody's involved. And I suppose there's some sort of a, pecking order of a chain of commands that we should go through. Schools probably have policies. And I really want to talk about that because I'm sure you have some great recommendations of, what's the first step in intervening in the school. So I want you to think about that. But, everything that's going on out there with our state of emergency and all of that, it's really difficult. So we're going to quit a bit early and head over for a special report in the newsroom with Richard Deschamps.
This is Life Unrehearsed with Matt Del Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson. Brought to you by Severia Mobility Products, providing you better mobility for life. Call them at 1-800-931-5655.
Makes me that much stronger, makes me work a little bit harder, makes me that much wiser. Thanks for making me wiser. Made me learn a little
I
bit
love
faster.
Christina Aguilera. That music, remember when we did our segment on music and how we use it? I've got a lot of songs in my playlist from her. It helps me motivate me in lots of situations.
She's a fighter.
Yeah, she sure is. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Stephanie Erickson here with Matt Del Vecchio. And in studio, we have Ed Cukier, who is the department head of psychological services with Summit School. And we're talking about bullying. We've been hearing from you from some texts. That's great. Please keep those texts and calls coming and let us know how you've intervened with your child who possibly came home and reported some bullying. Give us a call at 514-790-0800 or text us at 514-800.
Now, Stephanie, before we went to traffic, you talked about, I think, an important subject for parents because we tend to be responsible for our child's well-being and we put that pressure on our shoulders. And Ed, you were mentioning that there are a lot of resources at parents' disposals at many school boards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since 2012, all schools were mandated by the Ministry of Education to write up anti-violence and anti-bullying policies. And with those policies were protocols and procedures for when students talk about themselves being bullied or teachers witnessing something or students witnessing something. And so there's a step-by-step procedure in each school for what should be happening. With that also, there are anti-bullying, anti-violence programs in all of the schools. Some have to do with conflict resolution, social skills training, social awareness, embracement of diversity, peace programs, conflict resolution programs. There's a program that I did quite a few years ago called Positive Peer Culture, where we combined negative student leaders with positive student leaders. And we had 6 positive to 1 negative.
That's a really nice idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you're taking those kids that might be the aggressor, but then helping them to become a leader. Now, you're talking a lot about the resources at school, which I think are great. And I know that my kids' school, they have those resources and those policies in place. Earlier, you talked about also the importance of maybe going to the other kids' parents and talking to them. And in my daughter's situation, one of the girls that was involved in this like voting thing happens to be a very good friend of mine's daughter. And when my daughter said to me, please don't tell anyone, please don't say anything, I said to her, if you were the one who was doing the voting, I would want my friend to tell me, because I would want to have these discussions with you, and we all have to work together. So I did talk to my friend. She spoke with her daughter. It actually worked out really well. But I imagine that's probably pretty hard for some parents to approach another parent. Do you have any suggestions on how we can do that?
Yeah. One thing about kids talking about their being bullying, there's a certain amount of fear to tell the parents. Some parents will get upset. There's a certain amount of feeling of, I'm disappointing my parents. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sticking up for myself or my family. I think it's important to talk to the parents, to reassure your child that you're not going to retaliate. You're going to stay calm. And by all means, stay calm when you talk to the parent and let them know what's happening. Many times it'll be a shock to the receiving parent to know that their child was part of a group that was unfair or excluding of another child.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. That's Ed Cukier, who's talking to us about bullying. Ed, one of the things that I think are in the minds of many people, and in fact a texter came in as well, talking about how social media has just become so strong, and it's 24 hours long, day and night. How can children cope with that?
They can't. They have a very difficult time. You got to remember that the brain doesn't fully develop until about 24, 25.
If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. That's right. And so kids have a difficult time making choices. Their judgment is not all that it should be. And so they have a difficult time hanging up or unplugging. And so we have to help them with this. As much time as you can, spend with your child. It used to be spend time with your child watching TV. Now spend time with your child on the internet, playing games, talking about school, talking about friends, inviting their friends over, busting in on a little friendly party.
It's great advice, Ed. And time flies, like we said beforehand. We want to thank you very, very much for being with us on the show.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Very informative. Now, for next week, you must join us. We have a very special Mother's Day edition of Life Unrehearsed. Two amazing guests. We're going to be starting off with Claire Webster, who will be talking about her trials and tribulations with her mom and Alzheimer's. It's an amazing story. And we have an extremely special guest that will be joining us for Mother's Day, Mrs. Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, and we can't wait to have her. So thank you for joining us. You can catch us every Sunday from 4 to 5, and thanks for listening to Life Unrehearsed.
You've been listening to Life Unrehearsed with Matthieu Vecchio and Stephanie Erickson. Brought to you by Severia Mobility Products, providing you better mobility for life. Call them at 1-800-931-5655.